Today on the Everything 80s podcast, we look at why I think a Muppets Family Christmas is the best Christmas special ever.
Yes, we need a little Christmas right this very minute. It hasn't snowed a single flurry. Fozzie, we're all
The best Christmas special of all time. I understand those are fighting words, but I'm going to show you why I believe this is the case with the Muppets Family Christmas. If you don't know this special, it aired on December 16th, 1987 on ABC, and is about the Muppets heading to Fozzie's mother's farmhouse for Christmas. It's the only production to feature the Muppets, Sesame Street, the Muppet Babies, and Fraggle Rock all at the same time. So, with all due respect to Rudolph and Frosty, I believe this special has been completely overlooked. So that's what we'll look at here today. Thank you for joining me on the Everything 80s podcast. Okay, let's get right to this. So a lot of reasons why this thing is overlooked or missed has to do with its limited airtime, and many people missed it because of that reason. If this special aired year after year, I believe it would have cemented itself as a yearly holiday TV classic. And the Muppets seem to go through ebbs and flows of popularity, and I also think that has something to do with it. The Muppets Christmas Carol, the movie, is a great holiday movie classic, but the TV special got sort of pushed to the side. So we'll look at the plot of this movie and the production as well, and several different reasons why I think it is so great. So here's the plot. The whole Muppet gang is traveling to Fozzie's mother's farmhouse to surprise her for the holidays. Little do they know that she's off to California to get away for Christmas. She has rented out the farmhouse to our favorite Fraggle human, Doc, and his dog Sprocket. They surprise her, and she ends up screwed out of the trip. All the Muppets have shown up. So Doc has also lost his quiet, simple Christmas. We then find out that Miss Piggy will be coming up late to the farmhouse. And then we get a running joke about a turkey who has been invited by the Swedish chef to be the Christmas dinner. Next, the Sesame Street gang arrives, of course, coming in by song. That creates more pandemonium, partly because of an icy patch at the front door, another running joke through the entire special, and there are space limitations in the farmhouse. Then a blizzard hits that forces the Muppets to stay inside, and that causes even more havoc for them and for Miss Piggy trying to get there. We then see an old family movie of the Muppet Babies, and Fozzie starts a two-man show with a snowman that comes to life. Kermit and his nephew Robin find a Fraggle hole and make their way underground to Fraggle Rock. So we just have to ignore how Fraggle Rock is underneath this farmhouse and not under Doc's house. Unless he lives close by, but then he wouldn't have probably left that area for his quiet Christmas. The storm finally clears, and Piggy has made her way to the farmhouse in grand style. The show ends with the Muppets' annual carol sing, and we get a rare appearance by Jim Henson in a Muppet production at the very end of this thing. Okay, so let's look at how this whole thing was put together. So little did I know that this special was filmed only about an hour away from me in Toronto, just like another Muppet classic, Follow That Bird. And I did an episode all about that if you want to go back and check it out. You may or may not remember the movie Follow That Bird, but this was an offering that was maybe seen as not ideal for kids. Just more that the themes it explores are a little deep. So whether you remember it or not, you might, remember being mildly traumatized by this thing. So as far as airing, like I said, it aired first in 1987. ABC ended up re-airing it the following year on December 2nd, 1988. But the show had gone through a lot of edits over that time period. We first saw it here on CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation here in Canada. And we, in my house, taped it on VHS. So that tape also got lost over the years. And then we eventually owned it on home video, but it was not as I had completely remembered. A lot of edits happened to the home. If you've seen this thing, you might have seen different versions of it. If you remember when it first came out, you'll probably remember it in a different way compared to further editions or if you owned it on home video. But a lot of edits happened to the home video version due to copyright issues regarding the music. They had taken a lot of liberties with the songs, just assuming they would be fine. But of course, copyright issues vary from country to country and broadcasting standards, and it actually caused a few issues. So here are some of the changes, if you know this special, that happened to the home release compared to the original broadcast. So in the home release, they cut the scene with Fozzie and the Snowman. The entire Muppet Babies scene is edited out of the home video release, which is a travesty. And again, it had to do with the musical rights to Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Again, some of these songs, I don't know if it's an oversight, but when it's some of these Christmas classics, I think there's always the idea they exist in sort of the Creative Commons and that there's free usage, but this wasn't the case. In the original broadcast, when Miss Piggy arrives by sled, all the Muppets sing Home for the Holidays before Piggy walks in and wipes out on the icy patch. In the home video version, this is edited because of, again, music rights, and the scene just cuts to Muppets Carol Time at the end. I Heard the Bells, that song, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, also cut from the caroling scene. A fireplace scene between Fozzie and his mother is cut. For some reason, a 5-second scene of Fozzie decorating the tree with a then unknown Elmo is also cut. So this thing has just been absolutely dismantled. And I'll cover it more in a sec. Fortunately, there are several good versions on YouTube now, whether you're looking at a straight rip from the home video, like VHS release, and then some people have put up actual copies from the original VHS taping with the original commercials and everything from 1987. So thank goodness for YouTube that it's been able to sort of restore a lot of these classics in the way they were intended to be seen. So let's look at the reasons why I believe it's the best Christmas special ever. And I've got 6 of them. I can back this up here. Okay. Number 1, A Muppet Family Christmas is the ultimate crossover. So with all due respect to the Avengers, the Muppet Family Christmas takes the crossover to the next level. Not only do you have the Muppets, but Sesame Street, and like I said, the Muppet Babies and Fraggle Rock. This was basically the only time you ever saw these 4 unique properties together in one event. And it never occurred to me while watching, but if you go back to look at it, each different entity is introduced every 15 minutes. So it starts with, of course, the Muppets. Then at the 15-minute mark, it introduces the Sesame Street characters. Then 15 minutes later, the Muppet Babies, and finally Fraggle Rock. We've seen different combinations of all these properties over the years, but never all combined together like this in one event. It's the perfect showcase of each one and shows what makes each special and unique. In 1987, each of these properties was also reaching their peak. Every kid in the 80s loved Sesame Street, the Muppet Babies, and Fraggle Rock. When you look back now, it creates even more nostalgia to see all of these 4 beloved entities combined together in a 1-hour special. The Muppets and Sesame Street had a lot of crossovers, but we got a lot of connection in A Muppets Family Christmas we had never seen before. The obvious is the Fraggle Muppet connection, which was unique to see, but then there are unique scenes combining, say, Big Bird and the Swedish Chef, and they're just as special. So the number 2 reason, the music is amazing. And I played one of the songs, just said the intro of this show. And, besides the copyright issues, this hour-long show features an amazing 23 different Christmas songs. And music has always been at the core of the Muppets, and A Muppet Family Christmas is the perfect showcase of this. I dare argue that the Muppet performers sing some of these classic Christmas songs better than the originals, including a few standouts from my perspective, such as We Need a Little Christmas, Jingle Bell Rock, Here We Come a-Caroling, and Home for the Holidays. There's also the Great Muppets Carol to close out the show. So for me, I now associate many of these classics with the Muppets Family Christmas more than the originals because, watching this so much growing up. Okay. Next reason why this is such a significant special, this was one of Jim Henson's last Muppet appearances. Henson would sadly pass away just a few years later, and this was one of the last things he ever appeared on regarding the Muppets. He, of course, has a cameo at the end of the special when he and Sprocket wash all the dishes while the Muppets continue to sing. We would have the Jim Henson hour that aired in 1989 where he performed Kermit, but I don't think there's any appearance of himself. His very last public appearance would be on the Arsenio Hall show where he was the guest, but also performed Kermit in front of the audience. This special was on May 4th, 1990, the Arsenio Hall show, just 2 weeks before he passed away. But we can consider A Muppet Family Christmas his last actual Muppet appearance, and this makes the special even more unique and significant. So the fourth reason why this is so great, A Muppet Family Christmas gets better with time. So we all need nostalgia. This is one of the big appeals to Christmas, as it lets us remember the past so fondly. With the Muppets Family Christmas Special, you get the memory of those warm Christmas feelings, but also with the Muppets at their best. You also get the glorious reminders of Sesame Street, which everyone grew up on, along with Fraggle Rock, which again, everyone watched growing up. The more time passes, the more we cherish content like this. As I mentioned, we had it on VHS taped off of CBC when it first came out. We watched that copy for years till it was lost. Then we got the VHS release and then the DVD when it came out. But they, of course, are lacking compared to the original aired special. And, this is a time if you want to check it out, just look on YouTube, like the ones that are ripped straight from VHS. It even has the tracking lines in the start. They're like picture perfect quality rips from the DVD and VHS. I don't know. I like the old beat up versions with the old commercials from 87 because it just reminds me of, sort of that pinnacle of Christmas entertainment and those years watching as a kid. The fifth reason it's the best Christmas special ever, it's actually funny. And everything is funny when you're a kid. The jokes in A Muppets Family Christmas were perfect for my age range, hopefully yours too when you first watch it, but it still holds up. The running gag of the Muppets slipping on the ice patch is still funny. Seeing Miss Piggy wipe out after her majestic entrance still makes me laugh, even though I've seen it so many times. The parts with the Swedish chef are just as funny now, as is every part with Piggy trying to get back to the farmhouse. She's the butt of the joke so often, and hearing her scream as she's blown away by the storm is just as funny now. The performances and commitment by the Muppet performers is just extraordinary. To make these pieces of felt come to life and have a personality is pretty astounding. To be able to get us to laugh at the physical humor of a piece of material is really incredible when you think of what you're actually watching. It's a testament to the writing, performance, and execution of the jokes to be able to pull this humor off so well. And the last reason I think it's the best Christmas special, and probably the most important, is it's all about family. And family has always been at the core of everything to do with the Muppets. There was nothing more important to Jim Henson than family, and he made sure to share this through many of his productions. What makes A Muppet Family Christmas stand out is that they devote this whole thing to them being together as a family. In the special, there are no celebrity cameos or overtly obvious pop culture references, and this makes it stand out. I love the Muppets, but they've often relied on the cheap and easy, celebrity cameo and whatnot to make, that specific show seem relevant and noteworthy. There's none of that here. I think this is what makes it feel so family-centered, warm, and inviting. They're not trying to capitalize on whatever craze is most popular at the moment and the celebrity du jour, which has been one of their downfalls in the past. A Muppet Family Christmas celebrates the love of family and how being together is more important than anything. It's about the importance of tradition and keeping alive the memories of the past. And that's not too bad for a bunch of felt. So I'll start winding it down here. And again, I really think this is the greatest Christmas special ever when you put all those factors together. And it's obviously from my own perspective, and everyone changes depending on, how you view things and where you are at the time of those viewings. But I stand by it. I can't go a year without watching this thing. And, maybe for you, it's required viewing during your holidays too. There were a few years, of course, where I'd forgotten all about it. And, during a pre-YouTube era and with the VCR long gone, there wasn't any way to watch it. This isn't a special that aired year after year like Rudolph or Frosty, like I mentioned. So it was hard for it to build that sustained audience. Despite this, TV Guide ranked it 8th on its top 10 list of best family holiday specials. It was also tough for it to find a new audience through the different generations. And what's interesting now is, my brother and sister, we grew up watching it as kids and then into adulthood. And now my nieces and nephews love it because, my sister and I introduced it to them. And a lot of kids don't even necessarily know what a Muppet is anymore. So this Christmas special was easily lost over time. And it's awesome to see them love the same things that we did growing up. So if you're a fan, you know why it's so great. If you've never watched it for whatever reason, take the time to check it out and see why it's really a significant part of holiday entertainment. To me, A Muppet Family Christmas has more love, spirit, family, warmth, and tradition than most any other Christmas special I can think of. You watch it and you just are taken back to those, childhood Christmas memories. It's like being wrapped in this blanket of cocoa that still makes you laugh. And it's easy to rewatch all the time. It's a short special. It's not a movie. It's more than a half hour, but it's not too long. It's just the perfect length. There's no filler. It's just all comes together so nicely for this great holiday watching tradition. So I want to finish by giving a shout out to the patron of the week, which comes from patreon.com, which is the place to support this show if you're interested in doing that. And there's different tier levels. So at the top tier on Patreon, you get these little shout out bios on the show because I like to feature some of the listeners. So you get an idea of, who's listening as well and the things they're interested in from the 80s. So this week is Ren B. And his favorite movies from the 80s, Ghostbusters, followed closely by Poltergeist, perfect combination there. Favorite TV show, a toss-up between Golden Girls and Miami Vice. And Ren may or may not have attempted the rolled suit jacket coat sleeves for a little while in the 80s. I can't comment on doing that myself because, we all did that at some point. Favorite cartoon, Inspector Gadget. And I've done a whole episode on Inspector Gadget if you want to go back and check that out. Favorite artist, for the entire 80s, he says David Bowie. Awesome choice. Favorite band, The Smiths, which I've been getting into a lot more lately. I wasn't as big at the time on The Smiths, but recently, yeah. Favorite toy, Stretch Armstrong and Koosh Balls. And I don't know if you heard my episode on the hottest selling toys of the 80s. Koosh Balls was one of them for the entire decade. This was a huge selling toy. Favorite breakfast cereal, and he says it's moderately embarrassing, but I get where he's coming from, Cracklin' Oat Bran. When I grew up, the worst, junkiest cereal we were allowed was Honey Nut Cheerios. So to have something like Cracklin' Oat Bran, I would have been all over that because it was just like cornflakes and regular Cheerios for the longest time. So that's Ren. Thank you for supporting. And speaking of Patreon, over there, like I mentioned, there's the different tier levels to support the show. And one of the tiers gives you access to the Everything 80s Movie Club. And there will be a new movie review coming up in the next week or two. It is a Christmas movie. I like to give a little hint, but if you know this movie as well as I do, there's not a single word or line I can say that doesn't give it away. So I'm just going to go, the one hint to connect to this movie, Chicago Blackhawks. And probably that gives it away too. So that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. So if you're unaware, patreon.com is a way to support small independent shows like this for as little as like $2 a month. And then, like I said, there's the different tier levels. And at each tier comes the different rewards. So if you're interested in learning more, you can go to patreon.com/80s, patreon.com/80s to learn more, or wherever you're listening to this on. There should be a link that'll take you right there. So that's it for me. I'll be back soon with a new episode. Don't you dare miss it.